Hello everyone, DDubs here, and today I'm bringing you a build that I'm currently working on in Wolcen. This is the reason I haven't posted a video in quite a while, as I've been trying to kind of figure out an identity for this character. This character is going to be what I consider a Frost Mage, as our main source of DPS is going to be this skill right here, Tear of Epithiel, and then we use Winter's Grasp as well for clear speed. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave a comment down in the description below and I can go ahead and get those questions answered for you. But for the most part, since I haven't 100% figured out this build yet, I will just be doing a rough gist of it. So pretty much for clear speed, we are using Anomaly, which will bring everything in one big pack, and then we Winter's Grasp, which will go ahead and freeze everything. And we use this rune word Glacial Blast, which will go ahead and cause a chain effect, which will blow up everything if they die while under the effect of the freeze. And then we use Tear of Epithiel to bring them down to health so that they will explode and actually deal that damage. And then for single target, we are using Bulwark of Dawn to help keep us alive, as well as Livor Mortis. With summon receives a portion of the damage dealt to you, and as well as we use Dire Juncture, which helps give us an immense amount of survivability, as with Bulwark of Dawn up, whenever we take damage, we are just going to heal back to 100% pretty much instantly, as I've taken pretty much every healing rate node. So I'll just go ahead and go over each individual one now that you kind of have the gist of the build. So like I said, against single target enemies, so here, let's go ahead, throw one more node in there. So for single target, we have our Livor Mortis out. This is to let us be tankier and literally just stand there, face tank the boss, and continue to spam Tear of Epithiel on any boss mobs. Pretty much the main gist, like I said, increase summon health as much as possible. That way, when we do use Generational Grief, it will keep ourselves and our summon alive. So take all three of the health runes, take Generational Grief, and then these last 3 points are kind of up to you, however you want to allocate them. I just went for the Frenzy, and then obviously you saw me just put in Generates More Threat, not really a big deal. Usually when I'm running around and clearing the map, I don't have Livor Mortis out. I usually opt for Aether Jump just for mobility. Just that way it's easier for me to just ball up the enemies as they're all following me, rather than getting a threat from Livor Mortis. Next we have Winter's Grasp. Bring down the cooldown as much as possible on that. This brings us down to, I currently have it down to a 3.3 second cooldown. Tear of Epithiel I have down to a 2.2 second. Main goal is to get those down as low as possible. That way we can just continuously cast those, as those two are going to be our biggest source of DPS because of the amount of frost damage we have spec'd into and from our gear. So obviously take both cooldown nodes. Increased area of effect goes really well with this, as it makes chaining easier. And then critical chance score more damage. Obviously, you could also do critical damage if you feel like your crit chance is high enough. I mean, doesn't really matter. Both are going to be very good for this build. And then Permafrost. This is also handy, as it'll leave a cold AoE on the ground. Next, we use Bulwark of Dawn. Again, you can use this for additional ground AoE, as we take this node over here, which makes it so while inside the area of effect we deal more sacred damage with attacks. We do attack quite often just to keep our willpower at maximum. I'll show you why here shortly. But then we also take this node, which makes it so the area of effect deals damage to enemies, and then increase skill duration as much as possible, and cooldown as well. That way we literally can throw down our Bulwark and it will actually persist longer than what our cooldown is, so we can have pretty much 100% uptime on that. Next we have Tear of Epithiel, however you actually say that. Again, cooldown reduction, bring that down as much as possible. Crit chance score, average damage. Average damage could really be swapped out for, ailment chance score if you really wanted to, or subtract willpower cost. Really up to you. I just went ahead through it there. Biggest node for this one to take is stalactite rain. This is because it'll do this, and then each instance of damage will only be reduced by a additive or subtractive 50%, not multiplicative, so it'll actually give you more damage in the long run. Thank you to Even Merc for pointing that out to me. That was very helpful. Increased skills AoE, increased critical damage, and decreased cooldown, like I said. I haven't unlocked this last node yet. I'm still trying to get back into the game, so once I unlock this, probably figure something out with that. May do a second instance of Tear of the Thithiel with maybe slightly different setup. Maybe one with more ailment chance, not quite sure yet. And finally we have Anomaly. With Anomaly, we're going to go ahead and take Area of Effect, Event Horizon. Really most of the nodes in here don't matter too much. The one that I've kind of been flipping back and forth is between Convert to Lightning Damage and Echoes of Infinity. The reason why you might want to take the lightning damage one is if you do actually go ahead and take Ancient Fervor up here, we can take the node behind it and have 2 accords be active at the same time, which Lightning Accord gives us increased critical strike chance, whereas a Thithiel Accord gives us chance to inflict, or greater chance to inflict ailments. So if you have both going at the same time, you can obviously be running both of those simultaneously, which the crit chance is obviously very strong. And obviously if we're using this one, we don't gain that bonus. So that one's really up to you. But this one is also nice just because it keeps pulling in the enemies over and over again. So really up to you which one you want to use. Increased ailment chance of this skill. That I was just using, I use that mainly with this one. That way I have a better chance to inflict stasis on enemies, since it is an Aether ability. And then also Rending of Matter is also nice, just because this is another damage over time ability. So if you have multiple sources of enemies, you can do that, and then you can actually drop this in between, and it'll actually hit both enemies at the same time. As for our passive skills, I probably allocated probably 80% roughly into toughness, just because I said this is a tankier build. Still trying to kind of figure out if I want to go with the health or force shield. Right now we have much higher health, so we're just sticking with that. Ferocity, obviously crit chance is very nice. As you can see, our spell crit chance is much higher than our attack crit chance, and I can kind of go over that here in a second. So I'd say roughly 80% points here, probably around 20% points into ferocity, as agility and wisdom don't really need those too much. And then obviously this brings our bonus damage up pretty high. As for our passive tree, important nodes here, make sure you grab cooldown decrease, super nice to have if you want. These crit nodes are also very strong. And then obviously we go ahead, we take the critical chance score here. This one I opted for just because cast speed and attack speed feels pretty nice. Over here I grab max willpower and rage, and the main reason I do that is just because it gives me a overall higher pool of max willpower to draw from. That goes pretty well with this node up here, 100% crit chance score, while willpower is above 75%, just because some of the skills that we use do cost a little bit more, especially Tear of the Thithiel. Another good node that you can actually grab over here would be ailment chance score. which actually pairs very well with this node over here if you are taking that. I haven't really figured out if this node helps me too much yet. I'm still doing testing with it. I just picked it up recently. May not be helping as much as I think I would think it does. I currently have around a 12% chance to inflict stasis, but I'm not entirely sure if it's actually being inflicted, so I will do more testing on that one. Over here, we could just grab some life leech from spell damage, as obviously we're doing pretty much 100% spell damage. We're not attacking. Our attacking is not our main source of DPS. Again, like I said, grab crit chance score up here, more willpower and rage over there. And then up here, this is just another defensive node that we grab. We are using a all res chest and helmet to bonus from this. And then over here, we grab damage over time is dealt to your force shield instead of your health. And then grab all res score behind that. Next, we grab overload. Like I said, pretty much the whole time I cast this, I'm holding down my attack in place and attack at the same time, and then that way I can cast and, like I said, keep the willpower up as high as possible, just so that we can keep this bonus. And then obviously, if we do get our overload points, we are going to get that additional advantage of double damage from this node, which obviously is going to be huge, as this game does not have a lot of sources of damage multipliers in it. So that'll be a big help for your build. And I believe this should take effect after other sources. So like if I do an extra 100% damage, I believe that would apply later. Not entirely sure though. Still trying to figure out a lot on this game. I would think that this would be the last thing to apply, but not 100% sure on that. Actually, no, this would apply last because obviously it's after a delay. So this would apply, and then obviously, like let's just say I did 5,000 damage, this doubles it to 10,000, and then after a delay, it would do another 10,000. And then obviously, if I take this node here, it would be an extra 200 on top of that, or sorry, 2,000 on top of that 10,000. Over here, I grab the attack speed score on crit. I'm not really sure if that helps too much. Like I said, it's mostly just so that I can keep up the attacks, keep overloaded obviously, and as well as just keeping our willpower up. Next on the tree, we go ahead and take the accords, like I said earlier, and then if you are using the lightning version of anomaly, definitely take this node. That way you can get that extra crit chance score. And then I don't use this one quite as much as I did before, but it is an extra bit of damage for clearing, at least, not necessarily for bossing. But this just lets us, if we're using lightning skill, it'll cast a chain lightning, and if we're doing a frost skill, it'll do a frost lance. So obviously we're gonna benefit from both those. Excuse me. But really, these are for clearing. I mean, it's still a little extra damage for bossing, but not as much. Over here, active dodge can go through enemies. Like I said, when you're going through the map, we have Aether Jump as well, but this is just kind of nice pretty much on any build, as it helps you not get stuck as much. This is another source of multiplier on the tree. Excuse me. This is going to make it so this is pretty much entirely for boss DPS. When there's only one enemy within 7 meter radius of you, you get a plus 25% damage multiplier bonus, and then I pick up the 5%, so that brings it to a 30% multiplier bonus. If you really want, you can shrink down the radius. Obviously, when you're doing bosses, not too many summon extra guys, but obviously there are quite a few who do. But any of them who do summon a lot of extra guys are also going to help us benefit, just because we are using the Winter's Grasp and Glacial Blast anyways. So, I mean, if we're not getting the bonus from this, we're getting the Glacial Blast bonus. And then, like I said, we go ahead, take Dire Juncture over here, grab Practice Stamina as well. That way we don't have as much of a reduction. So we'll only have 90% of our health and Force Shield. However, we are going to be taking our damage on a delay, and like I said, Bulwark of Dawn is going to offset that. And then lastly, like I said, I take Witch Time Cannot Heal, which I'm still testing on this one, so I will have to do an update on that. But that is the passive tree for us. As far as gearing goes, lots of frost damage added to spells, because we're trying to get as much cold damage as possible. I have a fairly decent staff here. The only change I would probably try and make to it is get rid of that duration to stun inflicted on enemies. Other than that though, elemental ailment chance score, super nice. 27% critical damage. I actually just slammed that on here the other day. Spell casting speed score could be substituted for something else. And then obviously we have that frost damage to spells, and then we add frost damage to spells through 3 offensive 2 nodes. A lot of this gear I'm still figuring out, like the pants. I just put these on recently as they have a lot of cooldown decrease, so I haven't gemmed those yet, which I really need to do. Same with rings, still trying to get better pairs of rings, but those have frost damage and they have had a lot of health for me, so that's why I decided to use those. Over here again, these have elemental damage. Crit damage is also really nice, which this has 49% of. Over here, gloves, not really anything too special, just damage. Chest piece, again, we're using all res chest and helmet. Pretty much on these I'm trying to get as much cooldown on these as well. And then obviously transfer time between willpower and rage is always nice. Just a little bit more damage and resource generation on the shoulders. Amulet, we just have extra damage again and some more crit damage, which is always nice. Belt, I feel like the leather band is going to be the strongest in slot, just because it gives us that flat increased critical chance score, or however it works. But this one obviously has health, damage added to sacred spells. The occult damage is kind of a wasted roll, but not too big of a deal. Boots, these just have a little extra damage. Still trying to find something better. They just have a lot of force shield as well though, which is nice for our overall health pool. As you can see, we have a pretty healthy health pool there for us. But like I said, I don't have anything too special as far as gearing goes. Still trying to figure out the character for the most part. But with that, I will just go ahead and kind of show you the concept of how this build clears. Like I said, I'm not going to summon up the Livor Mortis, but this is pretty much what you are going to do when you are clearing maps. It's not going to be the fastest thing in the world, but it is pretty satisfying to watch. So I'll just go ahead and get a nice little pack here. You just pretty much grab as many mobs as you can, get them all in one big ball, such as this. And then you can go ahead and go to the middle if you want, bring everything to you, do that, and then everything, as you can see, nothing really survives. So yeah, the chain from Witcher's Graft is kind of nice. If you really wanted to, you can leave them spread out as well. I usually like to ball them up. I find that works a little bit better as far as getting the chains to go, as everything's just kind of packed into just one nice tight ball. However, like I said, you can always just cast it like that, and then it'll still kind of do that little chain explosion. If you get a lot of mobs all in one spot, you can get some pretty large chains going for you. But that's pretty much like how the clear goes. I see there is a red skull guy over here, so we will go ahead and grab him, and I will kind of display what we do with our Livor Mortis. And obviously I haven't been doing my basic attacks, but really when you're doing single target, you just hold attack in place or hold the mob and then just continue to cast Tears of Ithiel and obviously Anomaly as well. So when it comes to boss targets, he's only a blue, but what we'll do is we go ahead and bring up our Livor Mortis like this, get both of our procs going, make sure we keep Bulwark of Dawn down, and pretty much just spam Tears of Ithiel. As you can see, we can pretty much face tank it, and Bulwark is going to do the work and keep us alive. So that's pretty much the main concept of the build. Like I said, pretty much just keep your anomalies up, keep Bulwark of Dawn up against bosses, and as much... Oh, sorry about that. 1 sec, let me switch that back over. I wasn't running the anomalies, but cold damage does quite a chunk on the enemy's little stamina bar thing that they have. So yeah, that's pretty much how this build is going to clear. I won't clear the whole map just because, like I said, this build is a little bit slower, so I won't go ahead and waste any of your time with that. But that's pretty much the main concept. Again, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and leave a comment down in the leave a comment down below. I will go ahead get to you on that as soon as I can. As always, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to check me out on Twitch, you can always catch me there, and I will be able to answer questions there as well. Twitch.tv/hardstuckaverage. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be that build for you guys. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.